Hey, Skippy.
What's up?
Happy New Year, buddy.
Happy New
And
Year.
welcome all to the Push to Shout podcast, episode 60, coming at you live from a whole new century.
In a whole new century.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone else is there too. It's not. Unless you're watching this like in 2017.
Or from the past. Whoa!
No, that's not happening.
That's how the Angry Video Game Nerd does it. It takes you back to the past. Skippy, tell me about your life.
Well. Where do I begin?
I heard you made a video.
I was born in 1991,
Oh my god.
but recently I did make
This
a video.
fucking clown.
I made a very long year in review video before you did, and it's longer than yours, and therefore better. And that's almost all I did in the past week, video game related at least. I mean, I probably spent 10 hours on that thing at least, between gathering footage and editing it and all that. It's
Now-
an undertaking.
Okay, so if you watch this, you probably already know that we both made year in review videos, and it's kind of funny because I made mine. I hadn't seen yours, but
Oh, really? I didn't know you hadn't seen my.
yeah, I didn't watch it until
I thought
afterwards.
that you just used all the clips that I did out
No.
of spite.
Well, the clips that you used were the clips that I used because they're basically all trailers.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way to get footage because trailers have, diverse footage that's not boring.
Yep.
So you can either record it yourself, which requires you to actually go to different places in the games, or like download different gameplay clips from individual parts, which I did for some parts, but overall it's just way more efficient to.
It's much harder to get into the game and record, especially if
Yeah.
you don't already have the game downloaded and all that shit. I specifically downloaded Elite Dangerous because I wanted a shot of going in and out of the hyperspace in that game, which I think is really cool, and docking and all that. And I wanted it to be commentary free, and it's just impossible to find on YouTube. So I had to record my own footage there, and there's a couple others like Rocket League and stuff that I recorded my own, but at least half of it is just trailers, more than
Yeah.
half probably.
It's just kind of funny watching like the Witcher trailer
Yes,
and the
yeah.
Undertale trailer. They have the same shots in sequence. I mean, it's not that big a deal because the actual content of the video is the stuff that we're saying, but it's funny. It's something
We ended
that,
up saying a lot of the same stuff too, but I guess nobody should be surprised by
except everything I said was much better.
that. Okay.
And I had an epic funny bit that
You did have
put
an
Angry
epic funny
Joe
bit
to
at the
shame.
beginning. You're a better YouTuber than I am.
We prefer to go by Tuber
Apostrophe tuber.
to appeal to the 2016 generation.
Yeah, I just watched your video before we went live. Kind of. I watched it about an hour ago, and I liked it. It was fine. I mean,
Meh.
for an amateur,
Meh.
it got the job done. I guess.
NEH. I was kind of surprised. I'm gonna fire shots. I'm naming names.
Oh boy.
Flimsy, going on Twitter, talking smack, saying that it was a pretty bad year for video games.
I think he's projecting. He's projecting his own bad year. He's
could be-
he's
could
a
be-
depressed YouTuber who
of course.
he never got off the ground and just he couldn't break out of his sad life, and so he's just taking it out on the video game industry in general, and that's his fault, not
Now,
ours.
obviously, that is true. But I think also part of it might be that he mostly plays computer games, and that if you were only,
It was a good year
I
for
know,
PC.
it's still not insane, but it's more justifiable because if you had like a Wii U and a PS4, then there's just no way you can't.
I mean, I had neither of those things. The only console game I played was Bloodborne, and I didn't finish it. So I still think it was an awesome year. I mean, most of the great games came out on PC, and I do feel like I missed out a lot on because of the Wii U and not having that. But because like Mario Maker, I know I would have loved that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's been one of the best years for PC in a long time as well. as far as like ports go, like console ports to PC, they're not much better than they ever have been. But for the most part, I think it's still been a pretty good year. So
Now,
I'm happy with it.
I figure that our audience on this show might be interested in this. What was the actual process of putting your video together like? Not in like general terms, but is there anything specific that stands out that was particularly difficult or was a stumbling block?
I
Something frustrating, something exciting?
A few things I would say. God, I don't know. There's always like little things that you get caught up on that you just can't get right, you know?
Mm.
And in this case, it was my introduction and how to like start the video and my conclusion too, how to start and end the video. I I wanted to make it funny or something, but like basically if I'm
Let's
not in a
face it, you
funny
can't.
mood, yeah, I just don't have the funny skills. But if I wasn't in a funny mood while making it, and so I was like, fuck it, I don't need to make this thing
Yeah.
funny, and that's not really the point
I
of me
thought it
making
was
it in the first place. So
really
know.
funny that because Super Bunny Hops came out today, like an hour or two after mine, and um, your description said like there's no jokes in this or whatever.
yeah,
My opening was about like forced
yeah,
sketches
you
and
basically
skits at the beginning of videos,
yeah,
and then his was that too.
really. I guess we're all just becoming serious game critics now. Becoming an official journalist.
That's it's just like I mean I did it first by
Oh, okay.
several minutes though. Like it's not I don't know. It's
I
damn.
think
I kind of
mean,
wish that it would have been the only one to do that.
yeah, it's hard to for me personally. It's hard to merge a funny video and a what would you call this expositional video like
Oh yeah.
criticism and stuff. That's a very I respect people who can do that. You do that pretty well, and
That's my
that's a
favorite
very
thing
rare
to do.
thing. Yeah, Mecha Gamezilla, that's another one who
Yeah,
he does that so
absolutely.
well, and it's really really tough when you actually start to do it because it's like you want to get your point across, and it's hard to find the line of like where should I be funny with it, where should I be serious with it, and I didn't even try this year just because I was already running late, like it was on the third. I was making it on the second or the third, and I was like, "Fuck! I want to just get this thing out the door."
Hmm.
And I realized it was going to be really long because of how I didn't even put all the games on there that I wanted to mention, and I wanted to put a whole bit that would have probably been funny about Nintendo and how I don't own a Wii U, and like bring up the games one at a time and kind of like make some kind of joke about how like, "Oh, I know, I'll get around to buying a Wii U later" or something like that. But I never did. It was already like 15 minutes long, so I just couldn't do it.
If you're
Um,
not feeling it, yeah, there's no reason to like try to
yeah,
force the
yeah, that's
jokes.
the worst thing you can do is to try to force anything. And so like my video making process is usually just kind of what am I feeling? Like bringing up like I just like I don't even really overthink it at all really. I just go from the first game that pops into my mind and then the next game that pops into my mind and I like bring up like Hotline Miami 2 and I say like what is the vibe I get from Hotline Miami 2? And it's not that heart pounding, throbbing Hotline Miami 1 vibe. It's the more slow, especially the soundtrack and stuff is more slow and atmospheric. And so I played one of those kinds of songs and then did Bloodborne and City Skylines, which are more subdued kind of games. And just kind of go with the
Mhm.
flow. And I always choose the soundtrack before I start even writing the thing so that I have like that kind of
Really,
synchronicity between the synchronicity
I do
between
it
the
in the
music and
other
the
word.
what else everything else that's going on is really important to me.
Yeah, that's
I
kind of interesting because
yeah I also
the music I picked for the Undertale bit was very much determined by the words.
yeah
I think there was The Witcher. I know I wanted to use the la, 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 the Silver for Monsters. That's the name of the song. But
and I knew I wanted to use the one that I used, which was the slower violin one.
yeah,
Because again, it was like, all right, what's the first thing that comes to mind when I think of The Witcher and what I love about it? And that song in particular is the one that plays when you're like out in the countryside and stuff.
yeah, I can
And
see that.
and so I just chose it and I went with it. And so, you know, sometimes I think it works and sometimes it doesn't. I wasn't really happy with like my Undertale choice and stuff, but like whatever. I always choose the music first, no matter what the video I'm doing. The music is number one for me because I think it just
Yeah,
it
it
easily
completely makes
creates a
it.
backbone to work off of, you know.
Yeah, and people like listening to you talk if they're also listening to music
Yeah,
that makes it
music's
work.
big. Music's really big.
It's the same way for games. I was thinking that basically every game I mentioned that I liked,
hmm
all of them had great music,
I
and
think that's something
there
that's
was like
being
one or
overlooked a little
two that
bit.
I forgot to mention, and they didn't have great music.
Yeah,
Broken Age, I didn't have much to say about other than that it was shit, and really, what I need to say,
right.
and basically no music in that. I don't know. Music's important in
It's
video
really
games
important.
and
Yeah,
videos.
all the games, I think pretty much all the games I've ever loved have had really good music in them. Uh, that's a big statement to make because there's some games like Rocket League and Counter Strike where I don't even play any music, but
Yeah,
like
but
uh, any kind of single player experience, you know, anything that tries to rely on building any kind of narrative or world, uh, I have found personally that music is super important to my enjoyment of it. So yeah.
the the biggest standout thing about this for me wasn't it making it at all. It was the reaction to it, and not like, oh, people didn't like it or people loved it or
Yeah.
something. But I saw like two comments that just really pissed me off,
I got two. I think I got about two comments that really pissed me off too.
and they were they weren't like criticizing the video really, but they were like, haha, I can't tell if you're being ironic about like liking The Witcher 3 and the rest of this video. They thought I was lying or
Mhm.
being sarcastic for 12 minutes
They just can't
of
like they can't separate in their mind like what is
it,
being ironic and what is being serious. And,
they have to be told that
yeah,
something is satire, or I just don't understand. How could you listen to you or me talk about these games because we gave them about the same level of critical treatment
yeah,
outside of the funny bits in mine, and like how could you possibly think that we were just like fucking with you? Like that's absurd.
yeah. And I get it the other way around a whole lot too. Where like I released one video where I was uh begging for money because I had moved into the San Francisco area and lost my job after or whatever, and someone was like, "Are you serious?" And then like the Patreon video that I made, which was just like shitting all over Patreon for a while because I made
Guess
an
could be
actual
selling out.
yeah, I made an actual Patreon video, and people were like, "You're a genius, man. You're making money," and I'm like, "No, it's not a real thing. It's not an actual Patreon." I don't know. It's weird. And on this video, I got two comments that pissed me off. Uh, the first one that pissed me off was someone who just said, "I don't really see the point in this." And just that dismissal of the entire thing, just like outright just dismissal of like everything was just so. And that was like one of the first comments too, and I was just crushed. I was like,
Nice.
damn,
I
that
got
was
one that
rough.
said I may as well listen to 10 minutes of white noise.
uh, and then the other one that I got, and this one pissed me off because instead of dismissing everything, it was just insinuating something that was obviously not true, which was he said this is basically copy paste of all of Total Biscuit's opinions. And I was like, I haven't seen a Total Biscuit video in like 2 years. I don't know what you're talking about. But apparently I share a lot of opinions with Total Biscuit, and so I just copy and pasted all of his criticisms. I don't know. People are people make bad YouTube comments.
Yeah,
It's a bad place for
guys, breaking news. YouTube comments are sometimes bad.
yeah. But I don't know. For the most part, I'm always happy with like I that's not the first relatively I don't want to say serious because nothing about it is serious, but like non just jokey video that I've made, and everyone that I've ever made, I think people have actually genuinely enjoyed for the most part. And you always get like you always get like a standard amount of dislikes, and they always come in the first like hour because people who are subscribed to you for a very specific reason see it and go like, I don't want this, and dislike it. But then after that, everyone starts to like it, and so I don't know, whatever. I don't think too much about that kind of shit. I would make those videos, those kinds of videos. In fact, I used to make those kinds of videos without any audience whatsoever, just because it's fun to make and show people and stuff.
Yeah, that's definitely true for mine because they started out basically only jokes, and then I made one serious one, and then started like almost alternating. I think I've done about half and half since.
Yeah.
And there's always like people who only want one thing and people who only want the other thing. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, those are the videos. You guys should go watch them, but you probably already have if you're watching this.
Yeah.
If you haven't, though, they're both good. As for non-year in review stuff,
Well,
breaking
immediately
news,
after
I got a text message, and
Thanks for
something.
that.
Skippy's gonna tell you something.
immediately after I finished my year in review video and spent like a day and a half just kind of focusing on that, I went straight to just sitting down for a few hours and playing The Witcher 2. And that was such a good feeling. Like, as much as I enjoy editing videos and everything, like it's a really that's one of my few, like, I'd say, passionate kind of hobbies. I don't do it a whole lot, as my subscribers know, but like when I do get down to business and start editing a video, it's
You get into
very
it.
entertaining. Yeah, you
Yeah.
get it's one of the few things that's basically work that I can really get into. Yeah, I right when I finished that, I sat down, just played The Witcher 2, and had so much relief for that, of just like, all right. And that's the perfect kind of game too, because it's just kind of like very slow paced and you just sit back and let it happen. And I've been very much enjoying. I've been playing through, I guess it's chapter 2 of The Witcher 2, which that game, I don't like it as much as Witcher 3, but it reaches some points of, like, its highest points are, I'd say, as high as Witcher 3's highest points, but its lowest points are lower. Did you reach the end of chapter 2?
No.
So there's like the curse that was placed on one of the kings, and there's a battle. Like, a battle is eternally going on with ghosts, right?
I've walked through that battlefield.
Yeah,
yeah.
and one of your eventually you get to the point where you're having to dispel the curse, and one of the ways in which you have to do that is to actually go into the battlefield and kind of experience the battle through various soldiers' eyes and stuff like that. But they're all ghosts, and they have these like grotesque like skull faces and stuff. And then like the commander of one of the sides of the battle is this gigantic, like, he's a real creature who is formed out of the whatever ghostly shit, and he's formed out of like pieces of the battlements and shields and spears and stuff, and it's one of the coolest looking. I don't know, like, if for reference, like, look up like Witcher 2 commander. I think he was called like a Draugr or whatever, Draugr, however you say it. But that is one of the coolest designed enemies. He's so cool looking, and I've really enjoyed like the last part of that quest of like going through the process of dispelling this curse, and I love the way that The Witcher 2 handles the fantasy elements and just treats them so. We've talked about this, so I won't go into it, but like treats them as just an accepted thing of the world, and like curses are just something that happens, and there's kind of a science behind them.
And they're still scary, but the people in the know kind of understand how they work and treat them as
the specters
occupational
appear and
hazards.
The soldiers, run away in fear, but they're not surprised necessarily that the specters exist. They're just still terrifying. I like that a lot. It's so good. I can't wait to finish The Witcher 2 and then go back to The Witcher 3 and play the DLC and all that too. Like, I love that I still have a lot of shit that I need to do in The Witcher 3. So, God, I love that series.
I didn't get into quite such a relaxing game after finishing my video. I started playing Lisa again.
Yeah, what is Lisa?
Lisa is really good, and This is one that I intentionally didn't include in the video, because unlike Fallout 4, which I only played for a limited time, absolutely loved what I was playing of Lisa, and I didn't want to just talk out of my ass before I had, you know, really understood what it's about,
Yeah.
and it's incredible. Like it and Undertale are almost in the same vein. They're very different games, tonally and gameplay wise, but they're still kind of these hyper imaginative RPGs.
Is Lisa the one that's like really dark humor?
Yes.
Okay. I think I know
The humor
vaguely what it is.
isn't actually always that dark, which is one of the interesting things I found, that kind of wasn't what I expected. I was
Yeah.
kind of expecting very dark humor, and there is a lot of that. But sometimes it's just very simple, silly humor that's just in the context of this horrendously miserable world.
Right.
Like, you walk up to a gang of thugs, and one of them it's like, "Yo, I'm Hoops Jardine," and he's got a basketball jersey that just says 86 on it, and you murder him and everyone he knows, and there's another part. I'm not gonna spoil everything, but just little tastes that aren't too important.
Like not necessarily dark humor,
Yeah,
but
there's a
humor
guy
in
listening to
dark
the radio.
context.
There's a guy listening to the radio, and you're to the left of him. Then there's him, and the radio's on the right. He's in the way of the radio. And the radio's playing this annoying looping song that you've been hearing this whole time you've been walking through this cave.
Right.
And you get up to him, and then he says, I like this song. It reminds me of when I was a kid. And if you talk to him again, you fight him and you murder him just to turn the radio off. It's so good.
Does sound very Undertale, like,
It's
except with more murder. Well, I don't know. Depends on how you played Undertale, I guess.
And I know that I'm not like really into it yet. I'm pretty sure I'm still in like the first bit. I'm pretty sure I'm like at the very end of the first act. But it's really cool. And the soundtrack, you can't really make a comparison to Undertale, really, because Undertale's soundtrack is, they're songs. They've got really good catchy melodies, and they're really nice songs. But Lisa is it's definitely more experimental, to use that word. Sometimes it really picks up, and it's like a powerful traditional melody or just this insane rhythm. But sometimes it's like this chaotic noises, but it all works really well. And sometimes it's like part of the environment. It's the sound design overall in that game is, there's nothing like it. It's very different sounding, but it's got its own unique flavor. Like the bar, there's several bars in the game. The music of the bar, it's not like a tune. It's just like coughing and these moaning sounds, but it's like
rhythmically though.
Yeah, kind of. You really just have to kind of play it to get a.
That game's definitely on my list.
It's cool. It's really cool. I'm gonna finish it. It kind of turned me off at first because I heard that it's called Lisa the Painful RPG, and it starts with this very dark, intro, and then you have to make a very tough choice. And I saved at my first resting point. I walk out of my tent, and then a random event happens where I get beat in the head, and my stats are permanently lowered for the rest of the game. And I thought it was just going to be one of those games where, it's, deliberately insanely difficult and punishing. But it really isn't that way. You just kind of have to stick through it. It's more of like a traditional JRPG curve where you have to fight enemies, and, you have to manage your stats, and it's definitely more hands-on RPG-wise than Undertale, but It's cool. It's really cool. I like it a lot.
Okay. Cool. Speaking of dark humor, the only other, this isn't video game related, so the only thing other than the year in review in Witcher 2 that I've been doing is watching. I think I'm 3 or 4 episodes into Fargo season 2, which
I haven't seen the show, but
it's good.
yeah, that's what I heard.
So I love the movie. It's one of my favorite Coen Brother movies, and Coen Brothers are one of my favorite filmmakers, two of my favorite filmmakers, and so I kind of wasn't expecting to like the show. When I first heard about it, I was totally against it, and then people started saying it was good, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'll give it a shot. And then I ended up liking it, not as much as the movie. Season 1, I'm talking about. I didn't like it as much as the movie, but it was a different thing. Like, it sets itself apart from the movie. Sort of. It has some similarities or like callbacks to the movie that are a little bit unexpected in places, but I'm not going to spoil any of that. I do recommend it, kind of to anyone.
That's what I heard. That it's kind of not. I don't want to say like aping the movie, but it's really not relying on the movie.
No, it's not. Not at all. It doesn't even try to really achieve that same like Fargo. What I love about Fargo is that dreadful atmosphere. The just like everything is just awful and depressing and overwhelming. Like just the shots of like the snow plains and all that.
It's a really dark movie.
Yeah, the show is. I'm not gonna say like the opposite of that, but it's much more kind of ironically lighthearted in some ways. Fargo's that way too with some of the characters, but like it's not nearly as foreboding. It has its own vibe.
So it's that was one of the things keeping me away from it.
Yeah,
because I was thinking that it was going to be how many episodes are there? Like 13 or 12 or
10,
something.
I think
per
10.
season. And are they like an hour long?
Yeah, something
minutes?
like that.
I couldn't imagine sitting through 10 hours of that level of just oppressive darkness. Like that would be. I couldn't take it.
It definitely has some darkness to it, but it's much more. It's different, and I enjoyed season 1 a lot. It's got some great actors in it, just awesome stuff. But and then season 2 is like, I don't know that much about it yet, but it takes place like 20 or 30 years in the past, and same area kind of, and one or two of not the same characters necessarily, or maybe one of them is the same character, but they tell a different story, and it has more. Season 2 has a darker tone, I think, and it also has like. It has some interesting stuff, and I'm not going to spoil anything because this happens in the first 2 episodes. In the first episode, someone sees a UFO. There's no other way to put it. He looks up through the trees, and there's a light shining down through the trees, and you never learn what that light is. And I thought maybe it was a helicopter or something. I don't know. And then in the second episode. I think it's the second episode, maybe the third. At the end of the episode, the camera's pulling away from one of the characters, and it just starts playing a monologue from the introductory monologue to the War of the Worlds, like play thing, whatever you call it, the sound play,
radio play.
It starts, the radio play. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. It plays like that opening monologue, and then the music from that plays over the credits. No context whatsoever. Like the characters aren't referencing aliens or anything, but there's this weird background, like focus on aliens, and there's no acknowledgement of it by any of the characters yet. Stuff like that gets me really hooked. I think it's really cool, and I don't know where the hell it's going with that. And nobody spoil it for me, please. But I assume it isn't actual aliens, but I still love that. I love that they're just kind of hinting at this weird thing going on. It's really cool. I do like the show a lot. I recommend it, definitely.
Yeah, cool. I actually kind of want to watch it.
Yeah, you definitely should.
Okay. What is, I guess W2 is Witcher 2, not some... fuck it.
No.
Let's just talk about Oculus. I want to talk about Oculus.
Let's talk about Oculus. Jesus.
You care about it a lot more than I do, so I'll give you the cathartic pleasure of explaining this disaster.
I mean, I don't think I need to explain it to anyone because most of the people listening to the podcast probably already know. The Oculus Rift, the price and pre-orders were open, and so the price was set for the Oculus Rift yesterday, and it was $599 US, which to me is completely absurd. So here's the thing: they do the dev kits where you're getting a prototype of the Oculus, and I think they were about like $250 or something like that for a dev kit. So to me, when I see a $250 dev kit, I expect something maybe $100 more than that, maybe, but kind of in that range. And then they come out on press and they say things like it's going to be in the $200 to $400 range. And I think at one point they named $350 as a ballpark. And then they announced that it's $600. And that was such a punch to the face to me because, first of all, it's bundled. It's bundled with shit that nobody needs or wants. So you get the Oculus Rift itself, which also I think comes with the little headphone things that nobody should need. If you're serious enough about video games that you're going to get an Oculus Rift, you probably already have a pair of headphones. And so it comes with those. It comes with an Xbox One controller, which again, I'd say most people buying an Oculus probably already have a gamepad they use. It comes with 2 games, the Eve space battle game and something else that I don't think I've ever heard of. And the Oculus remote, which I have it looks like a Amazon Roku remote or something. I have no idea what the fuck that's for. But basically, it seems to me like they're just throwing all that shit into artificially inflate the value to make it look more like a $600 value, even though it's not. And then fucking Palmer Luckey gets on Twitter and starts talking about how they're actually like losing money or breaking even on these things, and that everyone should just be happy with what they got and all this shit, and that they're offering a premium product. And like to me, it just seems like this was originally supposed to be. First of all, they always build it as like the future of gaming, and with the Kickstarter and stuff, the wording that they would use would kind of imply that it's like, you know, we're one of you guys. It's for the people and stuff. And now it's like this premium product that most people, the large majority of people, aren't going to be willing to buy for $600. And it doesn't make any sense to me. I hate it. I hate that they expect you to buy a fucking VR headset, which is basically 2 phone screens with lenses and an IR tracker for the price of a cell phone. That doesn't make sense to me. I hate it. I hate it.
Yeah. So where do you really start? So he says, let's just start with the bundling, because obviously $600 is obscene, and the first thing he would ask is, why the hell can't they unbundle it and make it cheaper? So he didn't quite say that they're losing money. What he said was, we're not making money. Well, okay. But that's fine. Let's say they're breaking even right now, and that they bought the Xbox One controllers and the Eve whatevers and all this shit that they're bundling wholesale for super cheap. Still, over that many units, it's still going to add up. That even if you can make the price $550, that is a lot easier to swallow than $600. Something that number, sometimes in sales 101 classes, they talk about like critical prices where people will like psychologically start to realize, oh, this is too rich for me right now. And it's even for small things like buying a candy bar. At some point, certain numbers just sound and feel way too high. Like you might buy a $2-3 candy bar, but once it gets up to $6 is way worse than $5 to a lot of people. So it seems like they could have made it cheaper somehow just by not doing this. It seems like a scheme almost. It's pretty transparently like a strategy to make people think that they're getting more value.
Maybe this is all conjecture now, but to me it seems like, all right, you had the original Kickstarter, which wasn't planning to be a premium product at all. It was kind of experimental. It was like, hey, this is VR. It's going to be cool. It's not necessarily going to blow your mind at first. It's just a cool thing. It's a little bit of a gimmick, but it's neat, and it's going to be reiterated and eventually be something really, really fine-tuned. And then they get bought by Facebook for, what was it, like $2 billion or something absurd like that. And I think at that point, and maybe a little bit before that point, but definitely after that point, they started saying, like, all right, how do we make this thing like an Apple product, like something that is going to take culture by swarm, and that people are going to pay a premium price for, because it's
Well, I
going to be
can
this
tell you the
amazing
first thing you wouldn't do. You wouldn't send Palmer Luckey to do the keynote.
Yeah, Palmer, and letting Palmer Luckey get on Twitter and say things like he would say shit like, this is something that he said on Twitter in response to someone who was complaining. He said, if you don't want the Xbox One controller, you can just sell it for a $50 to $80 profit, which is just not true. I really don't think that you can sell an Xbox One controller secondhand for $50 to $80. But also, like, the simple response to that is, well, why the fuck are you even including it? We don't want to sell it.
Yeah,
for a
why
profit.
don't
we just don't want
you
it at
sell
all.
it for profit?
Yeah, you fucker. And then he comes out and says, well, it's costing us almost nothing to put those controllers into the bundle. And again, you go, well, why? And then he said, well, it needs to be a complete package. Why?
Yeah, even like, so the theory is probably that it adds value to have these things in a bundle. But if the strategy is this high-end premium product, then why would that almost cheapens it to throw in a random controller and a shitty game that no one's heard of? It's like an Eve spin-off game of all things. Like, it might be a good game, but it definitely cheapens it. It doesn't make it feel like a premium thing. If this was the Rolex of gaming peripherals, then Rolex wouldn't give you, like, they wouldn't give you a pair of earbuds or a T-shirt with your... Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it does seem very conflicting. And there's people in the comments right now saying, like, well, if you compare it to the price of monitors that are around the resolution that the Oculus is and stuff like that, then it starts to look about even. But a monitor is something that you buy
that you will use with your computer
a lot,
all the time, always, when you're working on your computer and playing games, doing anything.
It feels like more of a
peripheral.
Necessary...
It's a gimmick.
Yeah. A monitor feels necessary. A VR headset does not. A VR headset is a gimmick, and I love the idea of VR, and I'm definitely going to
cool
get
gimmick.
One. Not necessarily an Oculus, but I'm going to get one eventually, probably relatively soon, like in the next year and a half, hopefully. But it's still a gimmick. It is. It is just a cool way to play your games. And I don't see anyone being. They're going to get some. They've already got more pre-orders than I think they expected to. They're going to get people buying these things, but I think, like, even from a business perspective, you're not getting word out there very well when you're turning away so many people based on the price and its positioning as a premium product. And then you look at the competitors. So, like, the two major competitors are going to be like Sony with their whatever the hell their VR headset thing is, and Valve. And to me, Valve looked like it was going to be the premium one because it was billed as being like more of a room-wide experience where, like, you've got multiple sensors, and I think it comes with a motion controller, and I think it has a camera on it so that it can detect objects and stuff. So that's obviously looks like a more premium thing. But then you see that the Oculus is going to be $600. How the fuck is Valve going to be cheaper than that? It's probably not going to be. And then Sony, I think that one comes with hardware, like it comes with some sort of like graphics processing hardware. I think I'm not sure about this, but it seems like none of them are going for the middle of the market kind of position. You can either get Google
Which,
Cardboard or a $600 Oculus, and I'm worried about them. Nobody stepped into the middle. It seems like, or maybe I'm just ignorant. Maybe there's someone
to some
making great
extent,
VR headsets that aren't too expensive, but I haven't heard of them.
that makes sense because is there really a middle market for a product as niche as VR? Or at least right now, it's very niche. Um, I don't know that there's like your average consumer who's willing to buy a VR.
No,
Maybe
definitely
once you
not.
put one on their head,
Yeah,
but there's no like large scale demos available. Um,
but if it
I've
was a
never
little bit
actually
cheaper, then
seen
it
a
could
legit
become like a Christmas
Oculus.
product. You know, it could
Yeah,
become a hoverboard. It would be something that like this is the big present that you're getting president. This is the big present that you're getting on Christmas,
yeah.
and the whole family can enjoy it because it's this cool gimmicky thing and it's going to be worth the price. But at $600, I don't know. Um,
At that point, it's like an investment.
yeah, it's weird. It's really weird, and uh, I
This is
do
kind of
think
strange.
I do think I've seen a lot of people kind of saying like, well, it doesn't matter because VR is going to be dead anyway. It's like 3D television and shit like that. But like,
I think that's
I,
kind of facile.
I think it's just flat out wrong. I think VR really is a major. It's going to be a huge change to how we play the games. Not all games. I
Some,
still think,
yeah,
yeah, some games. I still think,
horror games for sure.
yeah, I still think your majority of games are going to be designed to never use the VR at all. But anything like Elite Dangerous, these cockpit games that everyone knows that's like built for VR practically because you can look around in the cockpit and it doesn't have that that disconnect between moving your character and moving not moving on your chair as you look around because that's a major problem for them right now. But like that kind of stuff, I think once people will use VR, and again, this is coming from a place of ignorance. I haven't tried it on those kinds of games. I've tried it once, and it was a dev kit, and it wasn't a great experience. But I think if it is a good experience, you will never want to go back if you play that kind of game where looking around actually achieves something.
Yeah,
It's gonna
because
change. It's
that
gonna change things
is
completely.
really one of the most frustrating things about playing. Because I popped on Elite Dangerous for less than an hour, so
Yeah,
I don't want to say I really played it. But in games like that, I don't like having to look around. S- I don't
definitely.
like it. It doesn't feel good because it's like different from moving, and you have to. It's like a different mechanical process that you have to do, and you can't see what's in front of you quickly anymore. It's just strange.
Yeah,
So to just be able to turn your head, that would be really neat. And uh, yeah, so yeah, cockpit games, horror games, being right there and having
any kind of first
seeing
person.
nothing but the game
Yeah,
would clearly enhance a lot of games. But is it really worth $600? No, not to me. Maybe it is to some people.
yeah.
I
I mean, it would be. It could potentially be worth $600 to me if if it didn't come with some provisions that we haven't mentioned yet.
Oh, yeah, is this the tech?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah,
they
this
also
is
released hardware
unbelievable.
requirements. There, what kind of graphics card do you need to run a an Oculus Rift? Apparently, this is the recommended hardware specs. I don't know if this is. I don't remember if they were called minimum or recommended, but regardless, this is ridiculous. A 970 GTX video card to run this thing, which that's already like top of the market right now. Uh,
Not really.
I think it is.
No.
I have a 670 and I
Top of the market is like Titan X, but
well, okay, no, yeah, when I say top of the market, I don't mean like yeah, that
I'd say
I
it's
don't
more
even see
like
like the Titans as like a thing that most that like
I'd just say
people
that
legitimately buy as a
it's high end.
yeah,
I
high end.
wouldn't say top. Maybe 980 is top, and maybe Titan X is like crazy enthusiast or something. But
Yeah.
it's not as insane, but it's prohibitive for sure for a lot of
Yeah, it's
people.
like a $350 or $400 gaming card,
It's prohibitive for
graphics
me.
card.
I have a 780 Ti, which is a really good card, especially at the time. But uh, I'm pretty sure it's slightly worse than a 970. I don't think if I wanted to, I could buy this thing.
Yeah, I have a 670, which so I'm pretty much obviously screwed. I'd still run most games fine at mostly high settings. I have some issues with some, but like, yeah, it seems absurd given the current what seems like the current baseline for AAA games at the moment and what they require. A 970 is
Yeah,
way above that, and
yeah,
it's something I
definitely.
think most people didn't even think about. I certainly didn't think about like how much am I going to need to upgrade my computer to process this kind of video output, and apparently a lot. I'm still surprised it's that much because it's not like the resolution isn't ridiculous. I think it's like 2000 by 1000 or something. It's very similar to 1920 by 1080. It's distorted and it's 3D, but that's it doesn't seem like that should require that much more power. It seems completely ridiculous. And
Yeah,
then on top of that, uh, again, I think this was like recommended. I don't know if this is the minimum amount you need,
I
but it
think the
said
USB you do need.
three USB 3.0 ports and one USB 2.0 port, which I'm already using the large majority of my ports right now, and I've got my mouse goes into it, I've got my controller goes into it, uh, I've got a memory hard drive thing connected to it. At the moment I have to unplug my controller if I want to plug in like a joystick or something. I've got the webcam, so my USB ports are already like full. If I want to use this thing, I'm gonna have to like unplug everything from my computer to get this thing plugged in. It's that's ridiculous, and I don't even know how
Now,
many of those are USB 3.0 ports.
usually you can tell if they're blue, but usually the you would just say use a hub. But because it's asking for three USB 3.0 ports, I'm pretty sure it actually needs all the bandwidth of every port,
I
which
would
is
assume.
insane. Uh,
If not, then they're being wildly inefficient with how they're building the thing, which
I
also would be
replaced
super surprising.
I replaced my motherboard last year and made sure to go for like a motherboard that would last me for years, one that supported DDR4 so that I wouldn't be left behind when they release better RAM. And I'm pretty sure I've only got like four 3.0 ports. That would take all except one. That's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah, it is. And I also I was expecting this thing to plug into your PC like a monitor would. Maybe I'm super ignorant, but like as far as the screen itself, I would have assumed that would be like the same as a monitor output, whatever you call that, PCI or whatever the hell, um, or even just HDMI. Uh, Not USB, or maybe it still is, but then you also need the USB for all the infrared stuff.
I
Or maybe they're
guess.
also including maybe the Oculus remote also requires a USB port, and so if you don't want to use that, you can take off one of the USB. I don't know,
When
but
you think
it
about it,
just seems completely stupid.
when you think about it, it kind of makes sense why it would need that stuff, but it's clearly not a great solution. Like they need to work that out somehow, however they
It's
do that. But I just don't know because HDMI would obviously be the best way to do it, but it makes sense if you're thinking of it as like 1440 whatever, and all the data it has to move from your computer to those screens.
yeah,
It just I can kind of see why, technically, but still, it, it makes
it seems like a compromise,
yeah.
and I feel like a rube. I feel like I've been duped because obviously it's entry level hardware, like it's the first of its kind. I shouldn't be expecting it to just work perfectly out of the gate and be accessible to everyone. But this was just so disappointing to me. I got my hopes up a lot. And I wasn't necessarily banking on Oculus being the thing, and maybe Valve or Sony or even someone else will come in and say like, well, look at ours, we're cheaper and easier and just like way more consumer friendly. But it's just a reality check that really
Yeah.
sucks because I did get my hopes up. I even say it in my year in review video that like I'm excited for VR, but yeah, I feel
I
like an idiot.
I did not get my hopes up, but I feel no pleasure in that.
Yeah,
It's it's sad.
and people in the chat mentioned that they have to keep up they have to keep the frame rate very high. Like it's I think the input is I think the recommended frame rate is like 90 hertz. That's the Oculus's limit to reduce motion sickness because like it's so one to one that even 60 frames per second is a little bit too low. And it probably has something to do with 3D and all that shit. But uh, that that's a legitimate case that I didn't think very much about. Of like, all right, maybe you need a better graphics card so that you can run games at a high enough frame rate that this thing actually works as intended.
But does it? What happens if it goes below
I
90?
don't know. So I don't know what like people always talk about motion sickness and stuff, and I didn't try it for very long when I tried it, but I had no problem with like I never felt sick or disoriented at all. I felt fine, and that was like the cheap one where like it looks like you're looking through a screen door and it's a little bit delayed and all that. So maybe I'm just lucky. I'm one of the lucky people who doesn't get motion sick from this because I've heard of a lot of people who put it on for like
Well,
2 minutes and they're
I'm
done.
talking less about motion sickness. I mean, okay? So is it 3D? Wait, I didn't even know this because I didn't follow Oculus enough. Oculus Rift is 3D.
Yeah, I mean inherently
Is it
it's
showing your
so
eyes different images?
yeah, it's
Okay,
so easy to make it 3D because it's two
I see.
screens, it's two lenses.
Okay, so it's 3D then,
Yeah.
and that might have something to do with the refresh rate. If it drops below a certain threshold, does the 3D effect break down?
I doubt it. I don't know if it's so there's I know there's two different kinds of 3D kind of like when we're talking about frame rate. I think that there's the kind that shows you one image at a time on each eye to so like if it's 60 frames, you're really getting 30 frames per eye. And then there's I think I would assume there's also the one where it shows you the same image just like a normal monitor. But either way, I think the reason it needs to be a high frame rate is less because of the 3D and more because of the one-to-one motion of
Oh
it
yeah,
feels disorienting if you move your head and the frame rate is low
I see.
because you expect it to be reality. You expect no frame rate. So it's disorienting. But and I personally did not have any issues with that. So I don't know. I feel like I feel like it's kind of weird that they're trying to accommodate. I've heard a lot of talk about the motion sickness stuff, and I think it's kind of weird that they're trying to accommodate people who are motion. I think if you get motion sick from VR, either first of all you might just be screwed. Like, sorry, this isn't for you. Just like if you get motion sickness on a roller coaster, you're not going to be able to go on roller coasters. Maybe that's cold hearted of me, but it feels weird that they're trying to accommodate everyone while still blocking out most people with a price. Offering it as this niche product. Everything about it is weird. I'm I, I'm interested to see how the competitors respond because Sony became, famous for
Yeah, the
undercutting the Xbox
$600.
price. And yeah,
Wait,
ironically, the PS3
yeah.
was $599, so that number really strikes with people.
I thought you were going somewhere else with that for
No,
a
yeah, I
second,
mean
but
that
yeah,
that that is a
PS3.
good point, but no, like recently with the PS4, Sony we don't know if what their original price plan was, but they undercut Microsoft with the PS4, and I've seen a lot of speculation that they might try to do that with VR and say like, oh, we're the people's company and we're giving you more affordable VR. But at what cost would that be? Like maybe it would be a
It would
much
be
worse
at
experience.
$600. That's the cost.
599 US dollars. Also, the price gets in drastically in Canada and Europe and all over the world. And Palmer Luckey went on Twitter and said it was because of taxes. But the price was being like in some places it was being inflated like 30% and stuff. And it seems like
I don't have any problem with that. I think people are full of shit when they complain about stuff like that. That's just how it is. It's price discrimination. That's
I
how supply and demand works.
Yeah,
There's
you're right.
nothing you can do about it. That's the price you'll
You're
pay
right about
for it.
supply and demand,
What the
but
fuck ever.
it's the excuse of saying it's taxes when I don't
Yes,
think it really is taxes.
that is objectionable. When I mean, the actual answer to why does this cost more for me? It's because the people in your area will pay more,
Yeah.
or it costs us more to supply to the people in your
It's
area.
it's it's probably shipping and stuff.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
part a
It
lot of it.
it's
But
could it can be one or the other or both. But it's still it's a simple answer. So yeah, I can understand why people are upset when they get the BS safe answers
yeah,
like, oh well, we would have liked to, but it was just
yeah.
this darn tax thing. That sorry, we couldn't have done anything about it. It it's just a fact of doing business.
Also, one more thing. Again on Twitter, Palmer Luckey mentioned that they're thinking about doing a PC VR bundle so that like you can buy a PC that can run Oculus Rift all in one bundle, and then it would be $1,500. And he said maybe you can build one yourself for cheaper than that. But this comes with the VR, so he's implying that a PC with a 970, 8 gigabytes of RAM, all that shit, is under $900, and I assume it would come with a case and hopefully like a mouse and keyboard at least. I don't know. Like what? That seems insane to me. Yeah. CPU. And I would assume you would want a monitor too, but I don't think that would factor into the cost. Maybe. Yeah, you can plug in and go on Facebook in your Oculus. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. Either Palmer Luckey's completely out of touch, or there's some really weird marketing concept that I'm not familiar with, in which all this shit. I assume. I mean, like, well, the dev kits were only $250, and I assume those were breaking even at least. I would assume that like usually when you buy like a prototype, it's actually at a premium because it's harder to make. But maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know. Okay. Yeah, but people weren't buying it for that reason, and they knew that. Yeah. Still, I think that sets an expectation when you sell it for $250. Even if I mean like even if you say, well, maybe it'll be doubled, there's still $100 more than that. Which, yikes. Ugh,
Somebody
that
just pointed out that I was
audio
talking with
issues.
my mind powers. I'm sorry. There's a little creature in my house who's playing a fucking ukulele. So I muted myself for a second, but anyway, we were just complaining about Oculus more. Don't worry about it. I'd like to move on to Fig. So we talked about Fig
Mm-hmm.
months back, and I think we thought it was kind of cool that it was
Yeah,
actual
I liked
investors.
it.
Well, I don't anymore because I watched a video by a guy named Dangerous Analysis, who in a lot of ways is kind of like the Sargon of Akkad type, where it's like, I'm a classy guy making
Oh
classy
God,
videos
yeah.
with a classy shtick. But this guy um, has a degree in accounting, and he did a really thorough analysis of the new, like, lower level investment option that Fig is
I
offering.
heard about that and I didn't look
It's
at what the
it's a
actual numbers were.
big fucking deal, actually. It's really shitty. So,
Okay.
I mean, obviously Fig hasn't done anything yet, but let me try to summarize the basic facts because he takes a long time getting to the point, but it's worth it because he goes into very thorough detail and looks at specific parts of the documentation that they provided to the SEC and like the corporate structure and what you get when you buy a share. So the idea is that under the Jobs Act, which is an acronym for something I don't understand, something about startups, but basically it makes it easier to invest in startups via crowdfunding. The way this works is that you buy a share. This is if you're not a millionaire investor accredited on your own. You can buy a share of Fig for $500. Now that one share is worth 0.0001%
Damn.
of the company, but it guarantees you certain dividends. Guarantees, I'm going to say in quotes for now. It gives you dividends based on the game's performance, but that's after Double Fine gets paid. That's after Fig gets paid. That's after they pay their parent company. And this is the kicker: you have no voting rights. Like, it's kind of like a share, but you really can't do anything with it besides get your dividend.
Right.
Now, you might say, that's fine. It's a lower tier investment. That might be expected.
Yeah.
But what you're buying are shares in this subsidiary company, Fig Publishing. The actual Fig Publishing company is losing money insanely fast. They had analysis done that they even provided this, because if they don't provide this, then
legally they have to.
They could get indicted for securities fraud. So what these independent accountants determined was that it is absolutely impossible for Fig to remain a going concern for 6 months. Like, it cannot exist. It needs backing from someone to keep it alive. Like, so the parent company, I forget the name, it's like Loose Tooth, I think, or something like that. Something Tooth. They're basically funding the whole thing. They can pull that at any time. They have no obligation to keep giving money to Fig. So, here's a hypothetical scenario. Psychonauts 2 is getting produced. All these lower tier investors give their money to Fig Publishing. Fig Publishing makes the game payment, it's called in the documentation. They pay that to Double Fine. That only goes to the development of the game. Your shares only guarantee you stuff after the game is released. If Fig Publishing stops existing at any point, you lose everything.
Yeah.
And there is no legal obligation for the parent company to keep Fig Publishing open. So it's basically completely up to them whether or not they want to pay people. And that'll almost certainly be based on how Psychonauts 2 does. If it doesn't do as well as they want, they can just not pay their investors.
Yeah.
And that is perfectly legal,
but that
or
would
at least within the documents.
That would be suicide of their entire their whole Kickstarter model and all that stuff.
Maybe.
Would be dead because it would be huge news.
Maybe. But the thing is, they're legitimately losing money. They have a fallback.
But
or at least they did until
they haven't come out with any games yet. That's how a games company works.
They're not a games company. Right? This is the publishing company, not Double Fine. It's separate from Double Fine.
Okay, but it's still relying on all of the games that they're producing, they're publishing, right? That they haven't published.
But they're only publishing Psychonauts 2. So if Psychonauts 2 fails, that's it.
Are they not publishing Outer Wilds, which was their first game that they...
Okay, I guess we could include Outer Wilds, but that's really not comparable in scale.
Yeah, probably not, yeah.
So, yeah, if Psychonauts 2 sells well, it's almost definitely not going to be a problem, because, yeah, that would be suicide for them to screw everybody. But if Psychonauts 2 does fail, then what incentive do they have to keep Fig Publishing a thing that exists?
Sure.
Zero. So I don't think anyone sensible would be investing in Fig.
Yeah.
if you were actually looking to something as an investment, not just like kickstarting a game, crowdfunding it, getting rewards. If you were looking as at Fig as a place to get a return on your money, you should probably look elsewhere. And don't
But
just take my word for it. I encourage you to not only watch this guy's video, but read the stuff yourself. It's pretty damning.
I don't think that is being. I don't think that their demographic is people who are looking for a return on their investment. I think it's people who are looking to. They're looking for people who are generally the kind of people who back Kickstarters, who
Exactly.
like the idea of getting something for what they're backing, and
No,
I don't think a legitimate investor would do this because it isn't just investing that's the appeal of it. I don't think.
well, you get rewards for kickstarting things. If you're going this investment route, you're paying at least $500 and you're doing it for a percentage of revenue. You're doing it for $2.50 for every like 16,000 or so. There was some dollar figure, but it's not just like a personal satisfaction thing. It's people who aren't millionaire investors and know what to do with their money,
Yeah.
but maybe people who like are into video games, have some money to spend, and they feel comfortable investing in a video game because they know that. And those are the kind of people that, if this goes bad, are going to get screwed. Because you're right, this isn't aimed at the investors who are smart with their money. This is aimed at people who aren't smart with their money,
Yeah, people who
which
donate
is
to Kickstarters.
kind of predatory.
Yeah, I would call it predatory, but I would also call the whole Kickstarter model kind of predatory. Or at least exploitive. Like it's the whole idea of crowdfunding Psychonauts 2 is completely, to me, ethically. We didn't talk about this. They should have money. Double Fine has made games now, and they should have clout with publishers and all that. There's a lot of games being kickstarted. Shenmue, for example, being kickstarted for even though they don't need that money, like that they could find that money with legitimate publishing deals and stuff, and that they're just using Kickstarter because it's a really easy to get. It's a really easy way to get money from rubes with no obligation to do anything with it before you even make your game. That's always been icky.
Yeah.
We've talked about that in the past.
I guess what makes this extra icky is that Fig's entire premise was that it was different from that. That unlike those other guys, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, this
Yeah.
is a place where we welcome investors, not just backers. That if you choose to invest with us and in our products, you're going to get a return on your investment. You're going to get something back, and that's what we're going to do. But the financial reality of it is almost identical to the Kickstarter stuff if it fails. They probably will pay people if
Yeah.
if it goes well, because there's really no reason not to. They get to keep Fig open. But they have like the ultimate parachute out of this if it
Yeah.
goes south. And it's I would never want to put my money in here. Not that I would in the first place, but like it would be a dangerous idea.
Yeah, I mean, from what I knew about the original, I don't know what they would call them now, but like the priority backers or whatever, the guys who have to be, whatchamacallit, accredited.
Yeah.
That investment seemed, the payout was relatively low, but it was also, we were never clear on whether like it included original sales figures from like the actual crowdfunding part of it or not, like if that was like set in stone. But that seemed like a more legitimate investment because it seemed like it was more,
You're not
they
going
were
to
more
trick
obligated to you.
a millionaire accredited investor
You
who's
could,
looking well,
but
fine,
but yeah, no, that
Tim
didn't
Schafer
seem like
won't.
a trick. Yeah, it didn't seem like a trick, and there was no reason for it to be a trick. But this does seem a little bit. I don't know. It is. I hesitate to call it like a scam or anything because it's not.
It's not a
I think
scam.
it's just a bad idea.
Yes, and we have for all terrible. I can't talk. For however bad Tim Schafer is at managing money, we still have no reason to think that he is deliberately defrauding people. And there's really no reason to think that they will. All we know is that legally they have a way out of this that they wouldn't have to pay anybody. And it seems to have been very deliberately arranged that way. It's a very complicated corporate structure that doesn't make sense until you take this information into account.
Yeah, I'll definitely read it in that. That sounds like an interesting video.
What is
Ugh.
this? Speaking, I guess this is a gamer money
Oh,
news.
last piece of news here.
Yeah, we've been talking about prices, investments, and now an acquisition, corporate merger. Great.
Activision bought MLG for $46 million.
Finally, Call of Duty and MLG under the same roof.
Yeah. I don't know. They said something about like trying to make it the ESP. They're trying to be the ESPN of esports and shit like that. They're not the only ones to recently. I think EA hired some major esports dude recently, and they're all the major publishing companies are trying to move into that world, and that's
It's such a
pretty iffy
weird
to me.
thing to try to get into.
Yeah.
I think it might backfire, truthfully.
It's hard to say because apparently there's a lot of people who watch professional Call of Duty players who play with controllers.
Not this.
So-
Not this purchase. I just mean in general, being a publisher like EA saying, we should make an esports game.
Yeah.
Like that, it's not something you can just choose to do. That these are entrenched communities, and that
Yeah,
the only
exactly. It's
reason
very
Dota
tough
2
to
and League of
force it.
Legends is popular is because the original Defense of the Ancients was so wildly popular. And the only reason that Counter-Strike Global Offensive is popular in esports is because of Counter-Strike 1.6. And Smash 4 is only popular because Melee was so popular. I mean, these are communities, even though you have sequels in the series and games that are kind of using those mechanics, the ones that are direct, like, I don't know, copies, like Heroes of the Storm and shit, they don't really pick up steam as esports.
Yeah.
People can tell what you're doing because you're not marketing to, like, I don't know, people like the games that they like and are very passionate about it to be generous.
The way to do it is to make your game esports friendly. You know, have a spectator mode and a way to track scores and make it fair and all that stuff. But don't force it, and see if a community grows out of it. Because the moment you start trying to force it, it's not.
Yeah.
I hate to say this, but it's not cool anymore. You know, and like that is an important factor. And so like that's what Rainbow Six Siege did. As far as I could tell, they never like advertised that as an esports game, but it has. Like the interface looks like CS:GO, like very intentionally mimics CS:GO, and you can tell that they're leaving that option open. For like maybe this could be an esports thing, and I think it's still up in the air as to whether that game's like catching on or not. I know there's a lot of people still
You
playing.
know, that
it,
works
but,
for me.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
I
it's
haven't
cool.
played
I
Siege,
like that idea.
but I could see playing something like CS:GO and using some of the same gameplay principles as CS:GO, but they're not like, this is the new Rainbow Six esport.
yeah.
Yeah,
and they're not even.
you just
they're not
need
even, like,
you need
directly
the
firing at CS:GO or anything.
Yeah.
Like they make it look like CS:GO because that's what people are familiar with. But the game itself, there's a lot of similarities to CS:GO, but like the way it actually plays is way different. So
and it's not
yeah,
like
that's cool.
CS:GO has exclusive ownership over these shooter mechanics that existed well before it.
Yeah, Rocket League launched with a pretty good spectator mode, and then made a major update where they like, I don't know what exactly they did, but they redid all the spectator stuff because they're trying to make it so that if people want to play it like an esport, they can, and I think that there's people who are kind of playing it professionally or something. I don't know. I haven't looked into it, but like, yeah, that's the way to do it. If you do it like, do you remember Evolve? I think that was this year.
Yes.
It might have been the end of last year.
No, wait, was that this year? That
think
would
it
be
was this
so
year.
funny.
Yeah, I think it was the beginning of this year, like January or February or something. Yeah, Evolve was marketed from the beginning as like it was weird. Like I don't know if they ever really used the
Oh
word
my god, it
esport,
was this year.
but they
It came out
marketed it that
this
way.
year. Holy shit.
Yeah,
What a
yeah,
forgettable game.
yeah. I mean, that game. People forgot about that game 2 weeks after it came out. Like nobody was playing that game. But they fucking pushed the hell out of that thing. They were giving it to all the YouTubers and shit, and they were organizing matches and commentating over them and stuff like that. You know, like I think they had like a thing at PAX or something where they were doing live matches and commentating over them, and it was dumb. It was forced and didn't work with the kind of game they were making, even really, and it just didn't work at all. And it failed miserably. And I feel like that game could have been, if they didn't try to, like, it seems like they set about trying to make it an esport game and probably made gameplay decisions based on that. While if instead they just kind of said, well, let's make a fun game that people would enjoy playing with their friends, it could have been more of a sleeper hit. But instead,
Yeah.
it's just like you push it so hard that everyone just goes like, well, that's kind of lame.
This is going to sound like a rhetorical question, but I really don't mean it this way. Do people actually play Evolved?
Not like today.
Even like a small, like, is there any, like, corner of the online games community that is
Probably is.
still really into Evolve?
I bet there is, but it's probably pretty small. But I mean, yeah, like in the grand scheme of things, no, nobody. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna look up like their website and see like what kind of updates they've had.
While you
Uh,
do that, I played Rocket League again for the first time in a long time.
oh, really?
And yeah, I was over at my buddy's place, and we were playing 4-player split screen Rocket League on PlayStation 4.
4-player split screen. Wow.
Yes, yeah, I was surprised that it had that, but it was
Yeah, I thought it only
really
had 2-player.
awesome that it did. And we played a couple regular games, and then we turned on the custom mutators, and we played the dumbest video game I've ever played in that match. Gravity was set to minimum.
Oh yes, God, I love that shit.
The ball was made into a cube and made as large as possible.
Yep.
Everyone was going around super fast. Everyone had infinite boost. It got to where if you like held back on the control stick and boosted, you would just fly up like a plane and go completely out of control.
Yeah.
And nobody scored. We played for half an hour, and no one could get it in the fucking goal. We got it close so many times, but it was just impossible. It was like a pixel smaller than the goal. You had to be exactly at the right angle, and because it would always bounce up, there was only, and it's cube shaped, so it hits the ground. If it touches on a corner, then you have like 1 pixel where you can hit it,
Yeah.
and if you miss, then it's gonna be up in the air for another like 5 minutes.
Yeah. Did I mention the mutators? And I played a few of those. Like I played the hockey one.
I saw the puck in the video. Yeah.
Yeah, the hockey one's pretty fun because like, you know, the ball just bounces off the walls and stuff, but the puck will kind of stick to the walls, and so you get a lot of people driving up on the walls and like just trying to shoot it like around the stadium and stuff, and it makes it a very different game, and that was a lot of fun. And then like some of the mutators were, they have like 3 standard match mutators, and one of them sucks, I think, but there's one where they make the ball very small and it's like a pinball, like it's very bouncy,
Yeah.
so like you
pinball
hit
mode
it and it just
was one we played.
flies. And that one's pretty fun because like it just the ball just goes across the field like instantly, and everyone's chasing after it and shit, and that's pretty fun. And then they do another where like I think the ball's big and, God, what is it? Big and low gravity, and you have like recharging boost, not infinite boost, but recharging. And if you're playing with people who are good at doing the aerials, like it makes it a lot of fun, like watching everyone go up for the same ball at the same time because it's in low gravity and stuff. That's a good game. I might actually play that game after this. I know I've got someone who wants to play, so
Yeah, that's cool.
yeah. Derp says there's 401 people in game in Evolve and 130 people watching Evolve on Twitch right now, which is
That is
those
really
are both
funny.
higher numbers than I thought. But those
That was
are
about
very
what
low.
I mean, I'm not saying I predicted that, but I'm not surprised by that. That seems about right.
Yeah.
Less than 1,000. That's funny.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty sad. I think Titanfall's another one that
Titanfall. Oh my
yeah,
god.
that was a last year one though. That was like
Yeah,
holidays
yeah.
last year.
But
But that one
still.
died off really quickly. Like they ended up like I think I saw like a couple months after the game came out, it had comparable in-game numbers to Call of Duty 4. So, yikes. Although I'm sure there's a lot of people playing Call of Duty 4 still because it's Call of Duty 4, but still, that's pretty bad. All right.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Polymer Lucky's Mouthcast. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to bringing you delicious push-to-shout content well into 2016. I'm Talking Powder.
Skippy.
Good night.